So I've made a lot of corsets in the year that I've been sewing, and this right here is my very best one. This was the second one I made, and it is perfect for me. I'm always very comfortable in it, and it gives me a very significant waist reduction. But like I said, I'm incredibly comfortable. I can breathe fine, I can move around, and it just fits me perfectly. The one problem is that it cuts kind of high up here, which I don't like. I wish it would go down a bit lower. But the problem with this is the materials I used. So I did not understand how this corset is so perfect for me, because I made it out of one layer of muslin fabric and a layer of satin. Yet somehow it gives me a very good waist reduction. It's incredibly comfortable. It has been sturdy in about the year that I've been using it. So I don't understand why it's like that when the materials were not the best. With that said though, that is why I am in pursuit of the perfect corset, because I know that eventually this one will die, it will break, something will happen to it because the construction isn't there. So that's why I am making the video I'm making today, because I want to replace this corset with a just as good one that has better creation methods and better materials. So here's the corset on. As you can see, it fits me very well. I'm very comfortable. It looks good, and I like it. The one thing I don't like is that I didn't add a busk because I didn't know where to get one. So I really want to do a busk for the front of the one that I'm gonna make now, because right now I kind of have to lace it to about here and then put it over my head, flip it around, lace it up in the front, and then flip it around again, and it's really not fun, and it's not the most efficient way to do things. So I really want to replicate this shape and this feeling with something that is a bit more durable and that I know will last me a long time. So let's get started. For the fashion fabric of this corset, I am using a plum colored crepeback satin, which is kind of out of my comfort zone color-wise for a corset, but I had it on hand, so I decided to use it. And then for the strength layer, I'm using a drill because I don't really have access to other corset making materials, and this was the strongest I could find. I also have a waist tape, which I wish was smaller than an inch, but that was what I could find. And then I have a busk, which I got from Amazon, and I know it's probably not the best quality busk, but I'm on a budget here, and it is what I could afford. This is what it looks like, and it actually is my first time using a busk, which is exciting. And then I have the pattern, which is an Arania black corset pattern, and I am very excited to be using it as I think it is new. Once you have all your materials, you just start laying out the pattern pieces and taping them together, then cutting them out. And this part can be a little tricky, getting all the pieces together where they are supposed to be, but it just takes some grid work, and once you figure it out, it's quite easy to find your size and cut out the pieces. Now, because I have not used this pattern yet, I did do a mock-up, which I despise doing, but it had to be done. And as you can see here, I actually got quite a nice shape from it. The only problem was that there was quite a bit of room in the front, which I didn't like, so I think I need to take in a few pieces towards the front to minimize that kind of puffing up because it's quite loose. But other than that, I loved the silhouette I was getting, and that was the only problem I could find. And I also think I might take in the bust just a little bit, but I was pleasantly surprised with how the mock-up went, and I decided that one mock-up was enough and I could just head into the actual corset making after fitting this. After looking over the mock-up, I made the necessary changes to the pattern. So the hardest part about this is trying to fit all of these pieces onto the little square of cotton fabric that I have left, because I used half of it for my mock-up. But I think I've played Tetris enough to get them all into where they need to be. So I'm going to cut out this layer, and then I'll cut out the satin layer. One thing to note about this pattern is that seam allowances are not added, so you have to add them yourselves, and I added about ½ an inch. Somehow my cat always manages to find me while I am cutting out fabric. I am first going to start with the application of the busk, which I've never done before, so this is going to be a learning process for the both of us. And with that, I have my first pieces. I have the fashion fabric, which I've interfaced, and it's just a purple satin. And then I have some cotton drill for the strength layer. I'm going to start with a busk and just see how it goes. The first thing I am doing is marking where those busk hooks are so that I know where to skip in the sewing of these two pieces together. And as you can see, I marked those areas, and I will sew where the line of pencil is, and I will leave the spaces blank so that when you flip the pattern piece inside out, or right side out I guess, the busk is ready to go in. I made sure to lock stitch several times while sewing this part because there will be a lot of tension on this area and I don't want the threads to break and ruin the corset itself. This is what the piece should look like as you sew down, making sure to leave those open spaces as that is critical for the busk application. As you can see, I have now finished the sewing of the piece, and I went and pressed it right side out so that it was ready to put the busk in. This was achieved by simply sliding the busk into those slots. I pinned it into place so that I could sew it down and it wouldn't be moving while I did that. And for this process, I used a zipper foot to be able to get as close to the busk as possible without breaking my needle. And that is something that you have to be very careful about because if your needle goes over the busk, it will break. So here is the busk all the way sewn in, and I'm actually pleasantly surprised with how well this turned out for my very first time, and it's now on to the peg side of the busk. For this side, I started off by sewing the fashion and strength fabrics together, but before turning them inside out, I marked where the hole for the pegs will be, and then I poked them with my awl. As I made the holes, I made sure to continually put the pegs through and make sure that they were lining up correctly because I didn't want there to be any tightness or gaps if there was variations between the sizing of the holes. After poking all of those holes, I put the pegs through the holes and turned it right side out and began stitching it together with the zipper foot the same way I stitched the other side. Here it is finished, and once again, it turned out really great. After finishing that, the big reveal was making sure that they lined up correctly, which they did. To make sure the holes I poked on the peg side did not fray, I patched them up with some clear nail polish. With the front pieces done, I moved on to preparing the back pieces. The first step in this was sewing the two pieces, both the lining and the fashion fabrics, together and then pressing them right side out so that I had a finished seam where the grommets would go. And then I got to work on sewing in the boning channels that would go on either side of the grommets, and also there's some diagonal boning channels on this pattern too, and I added those at this time as well. Once all of the boning channels were complete for the back piece, I set to doing the grommets, which if you know me, you know that this is my least favorite part of any project. I absolutely despise putting these in, but it is a necessary thing, especially for a corset. So I just did that with both of the back panels. Then, after that was complete, I was able to start working on assembling the rest of the corset pieces, and I did this from the front of the corset working towards the back. For the construction of this corset, I actually had external boning channels, so when I was sewing the pieces together, I made sure that it was actually the wrong side together so that the seam line would be showing and exposed on the outside, and then I sewed in boning channels over those seams, if that makes sense. And here's what those boning channels look like, and they're really just strips of fabric folded over and sewn down over the exposed seams. It was now time to bind the edges of the corset, and I started with the very bottom edge. I did use a pre-made bias binding for this that I got at Hobby Lobby, and I actually really enjoyed using it, and it made my life a lot simpler. I will say that the color and finish of the binding didn't match my fashion fabric, but I actually really liked the contrast that it created. Once the bottom of the corset was bound, I moved on to putting in the boning before doing the top of it. And I just use industrial zip ties for this because I don't have a very big budget and they're very affordable. And I just took these straight from my mock-up so that I didn't have to waste any boning or cut new ones. And you can find these industrial zip ties at pretty much any local hardware store. Once all the bones were in place, I then bound the top edge of the corset. And this is it finished, and I went on to repeat the exact same steps with the other half. And here's the finished corset, and I think it turned out fantastic. I'm so comfortable in this, I don't even realize my waist is being reduced or that I'm wearing it at all, and I think it would be perfect for day-to-day wear. I do wish that there was a bit of a lacing gap right here, but honestly, it's not that big of a deal. And I just love this pattern. I love how it turned out. I love the shape that I've gotten from it, and I definitely recommend it to anyone who's wanting to make their own corset. And with that, this video is over. I hope that you enjoyed watching this video as much as I enjoyed making it, because I had so much fun making this corset and recording the process for all of you guys. If you did like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this, and I can't wait to see you guys next time.